Hello everybody. So in the last video we talked about that sex must be intimate, pleasurable, and mutual for women. I'll pin that video up above. And so today we're going to talk about mutual. I think in the last video I might have said pleasurable in the wrong place. But anyway, we're going to talk about mutual. Mutual means that you each have a choice in the matter. Nobody's forced to have sex. Nobody's obligated to have sex. And we talked about the obligation message a few times before in the playlist from the other book that this couple wrote. They found that women who feel obligated to have sex have painful intercourse and frigidity like vaginismus, where the vagina is so tight it doesn't even, you can't put anything in, and sex is extremely painful. They found in their research of 30,000 people that the women who have the obligation sex message that a lot of religions teach have the same rate of vaginismus as women who were sexually abused. That's right. Because if sex is an obligation, then you don't have a choice, and you're basically telling your body your needs don't matter and you don't matter. You're just an object to be used. It's like annihilation of self, and it's extremely damaging. It makes the body freeze up like in a freeze response. It's a freeze response, really. Like, I don't matter, my needs don't matter, what I want doesn't matter. My husband doesn't care what I want, even if he does. It's like erasing yourself as a person. And telling low-drive wives who don't enjoy the sex they're having because they're not having orgasms and they're dehumanized, that they should like it anyway because it's a gift from God, doesn't really help. Kind of reminds me of a comment that a young man left on one of the other videos. I can't find it now, where he was saying that women have all these needs during sex. That's unfair to me as a man. My natural libido is just so high. I want to just have all the sex, and women's needs are keeping me from having the sex that I naturally as a man want. And one of the commenters said he should stop watching porn. And I think she nailed it, because men who are watching porn have a very wrong, misguided understanding of women and what women want. The men who are best in bed and whose girlfriends and wives love sex are men that they're not watching porn, or maybe just a little bit. They learned about sex by engaging with the woman, interacting with the woman, finding out what turns the woman on. If you're not interested in relating to the woman, like if you just want to see the woman as an object, as someone you can use to ejaculate into, I would suggest that you don't have sex with women, because they're not going to like it and you won't get very much sex out of them. If you're that kind of a sexual brute, I would suggest just sticking with your masturbation to porn, or getting a sex doll or like a pussy pocket, because any woman that you're with is going to cut you off pretty quickly when she realizes that you don't care about her pleasure and that you just see her as an object. And that's one of the problems with porn, frankly. It gives men a false perception of women, but so does a lot of the stuff that women are taught. I'm going to make a separate video on all the things women are taught, but for now I just want to stick with this book. Mutuality means that it's God's plan. It's not one-sided obligation. And they actually quote 1 Corinthians 7, 3-5. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but yields it to her husband. In the same way, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but yields it to his wife. Do not deprive each other, except perhaps by mutual consent and for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer. Then come together again so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Hey, I'm not a religious person. I just got this book because I thought they have really good tips for couples. And people who want to quote the Bible as saying the man should spread his seed and the wife should just put up with it. Well, this verse says that the husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and that he should yield his body to his wife. So there's mutuality. Even in the Bible, they're saying sex is mutual. It's mutual. It's not one person using the other. It's mutual. Okay, I hope I'm making my point here. Let's continue. Now that we're going to talk about consent. And the obligation sex message doesn't have consent in it at all. By the way, you guys are wondering what's that? That's a painting of me. It's a picture of me that was taken a few years ago and then made into a painting. So it's in one of the bedrooms in my home. I think it's fine. I'm just sitting here because I'm in front of the window and I want the light coming in. And my, seems like a good place to sit today. Okay, consent. Consent requires everybody checking into whether they really want it. It does not. It has nothing to do with obligation. Okay, there. I put the angle of the camera down because people always think I'm so tall. I'm only 5'2". 5'2", okay? People are always like, I watch your videos. You look so tall. I'm 5'2", which I'll probably look shorter if I have the camera pointed down a little bit. Okay? What does consent look like in marriage? Here's the thing. If you can't say no, then you can't even say yes. And this is very important, especially when you're first dating someone. It's very important to say no, because if you never tell me no, how do I know your yeses are real? So that's a very important thing I always do when I first meet a man, in like at my clients or something. I throw a no out there for something because I want him to know that my yeses are real because I tell you no. And I also want to set the groundwork that he can say no to me. So, but let's continue here. If someone can't say, not tonight, honey, without a serious consequence, then they can't fully say, yes, tonight is great. And this is the obligation sex message. And this has to go, also applies to people pleasing. If you can't say no to someone, then you can't really freely say yes. So you're not really consenting. This is something that people in their 20s haven't figured out. Once you're in your 30s, you're going to be better at this. So don't feel bad if you're a people pleaser and you can't say no. People in their 20s really struggle with this because as kids, we have to say yes to everyone. Yes to our parents, to our teachers, how to drive, our church, everyone, work, our employers. And so we're used to saying yes and people pleasing. And then we learn in relationship that we can say no. Hopefully in your home growing up, you could say no to some things, but it's something people grow into. People often misunderstand sexual coercion because they think it means that they're forced down by their partner or that they're forced to have intercourse or perform a sex act. But if you have to have sex to prevent something bad from happening, you're also coerced. Did you know that? So if your husband wants sex with you, and you know if you say no, he's going to go around pouting, you're coerced. That's coercion. Okay? Coercion can look like having sex so that, I'm going to list a lot of things. This is coercion. You're having sex so that your spouse won't yell at you. You're having sex so that your spouse won't belittle you. You're having sex so your spouse won't give you the silent treatment. You're having sex so that your spouse will not emotionally withdraw from you. You're having sex so your spouse won't yell at the children or treat the children badly. You're having sex so your spouse won't embarrass you in front of friends, acquaintances, and family. You're having sex so that your spouse will give you access to money, like grocery money or money to pay the bills. You're having sex so that your spouse won't threaten to watch porn. Honey, if you don't have sex with me, I'm going to watch porn. and you have sex, that's coercion. That's not willing sex. That's obligation sex, duty sex. It's not even pity sex. It's coercion. If you're having sex so your spouse won't have an affair, that's coercion. If you're having sex so that your husband won't masturbate, well, I don't like that one. I think it's fine to masturbate. These people are obviously opposed to masturbations. But they're saying that's coercion. Because some people think that you should not masturbate when you're married. I think. Maybe I'm reading this wrong. If you're having sex so that your spouse won't lust after someone else, that's coercion. It can also look like a spouse having sex with you while you're asleep. And you didn't agree to that. That's coercion. Using a sex toy on you or performing a sex act that you asked them not to do, that's coercion. Even if you orgasm from it. If you recognize these dynamics in your marriage, please call a domestic violence hotline or talk to a licensed counselor about how to set boundaries and maintain safety so that you're not sexually coerced. Because if you're having sex against your will to keep the peace in the home, you're not in a safe relationship. And they're telling you that, and I'm telling you that. A lot of people don't know. They're just like, oh, I'm just going to have sex. I'm just going to give him a blowjob to keep the peace. That's coercion. That's an unhealthy relationship. You need help. You need help to see that you're abused. Okay? And you just need to learn how to say no. If this person goes off on you, obviously you're having sex so he won't yell at you. That's coercion. That's not a healthy relationship. Okay, now, what about the mutuality? The fruit of mutuality, if you do have mutual sex, the desire is going to build. They did a study of 20,000 women, and they found that there's frequent sex when it's mutual, when it's intimate, pleasurable, and mutual. The woman is enjoying it. There's a lot more sex when the woman's enjoying it, a lot more. The women frequently reach orgasm. They feel emotionally connected during sex. They report high marital satisfaction. There's no sexual dysfunction. There's no porn use. Frequency takes care of itself. When sex is not pleasurable, though, or it hurts, or it's coerced, or leaves you feeling used, then having sex detracts from intimacy rather than contributing to it. And if you have sex like that, having more sex will make your marriage worse. So if you're having sex that lacks the basic foundational components of good sex, having more will make it worse. Your marriage worse. Now, the reason they put this in this religious book, let's talk about the obligation sex marriage. Many churches do not teach this at all. Many churches and Catholic churches teach that sex is mutual for both, but there are some that don't. So let's talk about the ones that don't. Here's an example they give. In the evangelical church, women are taught about the 72-hour rule. You have to make sure you, the woman, you can't masturbate apparently, you're responsible for giving him a release every 72 hours, regardless of what is going on in your relationship, to keep him from temptation and to feel close to you. It's your responsibility as a woman to just let your body be used as an ejaculation device. This is very harmful. This is toxic masculinity, by the way. This is the toxic patriarchy, I'm going to say. So author Kevin Leman pushes this narrative in his book, Sheet Music. And this is what he says. This is very damaging. This is very damaging. Listen to what he writes. If you're not willing to commit yourself to having sex with this person 2 to 3 times a week for the rest of your life, don't get married. This means that there may be times when you have sex out of mercy, obligation, or commitment without any real desire. Yes, it may feel forced. It might feel planned. And you might fight to stop yourself from just shoving your partner away and saying, enough already. But the root issue is this: you're acting out of love, you're honoring your commitment, and that's a wonderful thing to do. This Kevin Liebman is a toxic abuser. He's an abuser. he's an abuser. You know, a healthy man, I used to be an escort for many years. In fact, I'm working on a book about it. A healthy man, and the clients I had, they wanted me to enjoy myself. And I've had many conversations with them about sex. They don't want to have sex when it's obvious the woman isn't enjoying herself. Only a brute, a man lacking empathy, would have sex anyway. It's like, well, she doesn't seem to like it, but I don't care. I'm getting off. That's her duty. That's emotionally messed up man, by the way. And there are men that way, and there are women that way too, who just use each other. But I'm telling you, they had an abused childhood, in my opinion, abused childhood, lacking empathy, where they can enjoy having sex with someone who obviously doesn't want to be there. You know, the men that I met, most of them could never. Even though they were paying me, they wanted me to enjoy myself. And they told me, yeah, I don't want sex with someone who's not enjoying herself. And they're like, no, that turns me off. You could tell from their expression. But let's continue with this author, Kevin Liebman, what these authors are writing in the book. Liebman's message is clear. No matter what is happening in your relationship, no matter how you are feeling, you should have intercourse. Even if you want to push your partner off you, even if it feels forced. How is this intimate, mutual, and pleasurable for both? Sex and desire actually thrive in relationships where the sex is intimate. Now, here's in their study of men and women, one of the best predictors of sexual satisfaction, marital satisfaction, that they found in their surveys of both men and women is emotional closeness during sex. I can attest to that. When I was an escort, the men get turned on by the kissing, the intimacy, the eye contact, the connection, knowing that I was enjoying myself. They were giving me pleasure, that I enjoyed them, the emotional closeness. Of course, in a relationship, it's going to be a lot more emotional closeness than I had in those paid encounters. But this Christian guy, Kevin Liebman, is way beneath what I as an escort experienced. Because he's like, no emotional closeness is needed. Just do your duty, woman. You owe me 2 to 3 times a week. Do your duty. So, and Liebman is not the only one. They say here in this book that they once heard a big name pastor, and they don't give his name, answering a question on a panel about whether it was okay for a wife who discovered her husband's porn use to take a break from sex for a period of time while her husband worked on his issues and rebuilt trust. Because for a lot of women, when they catch you watching porn, it feels like you're cheating on them. It's individual. Some women watch porn with their husbands, but for many women, it feels like you're cheating because you're turned on by another woman. It feels like cheating. It breaks the bond. It makes her feel less close. If she feels less close, she doesn't want to have sex with you. You can't force her. So if you want to watch porn, don't marry a woman who's going to be hurt by that. My ex-husband never watched porn, so I didn't have to deal with that, but I wouldn't like it either, I'll be honest with you. But the pastor was adamant. Okay, so the wife caught her husband watching porn. She was really hurt. She didn't want to have sex with him. She wanted to feel again like she was important and that this intimate connection. But the pastor was adamant. You cannot deprive your spouse, regardless of what else is happening. But common clinical counseling practices do recommend a period of sexual abstinence in those circumstances. This pastor couldn't even fathom that possibility. He couldn't see sex as an organic part of the relationship. He only saw it as a transaction that was owed, like this Kevin Liebman. And a lot of these pastors are not empathetic or very spiritual at all. So, they talk about how to handle libido differences, and I think I'm not going to do any more on this book. If you want to get this book, you can get it on Amazon. I think it's a worthwhile read, and especially for women, because if you're not enjoying sex, it's really nice to have a woman and a man and a married couple have some compassion for you and be like, you know, there might be a reason you're not enjoying it. If it doesn't feel good, if it's not pleasurable, if you don't feel close to your partner, if you feel like you have to, you're not going to enjoy it. And that's normal. That's okay. I think that they write with a lot of compassion. So I'm really a fan of this book. And thanks for watching my video.